Frank's Red Hot is the perfect blend of flavor and heat, so you can use an entire bottle to make recipes like buffalo chicken dip or buffalo nachos, or even things that don't start with buffalo. Frank's Red Hot, I put that on everything.
Hey, Craig.
Well, I hate to say I told you so, but...
You don't have a sad song ready to go on this spur of the moment?
Hello, darkness, my old friend.
That's a good one.
It all started with the Big Ten. Now the Pac-12 is canceling. And what the hell are we going to podcast about?
Is this your creative process every time you do one of these songs? Just like it just kind of comes to you on the fly?
No, I write it down sometimes.
Oh, okay. Sometimes. But
yeah,
not this time.
Not this time.
It's too obvious.
Too obvious.
Son of a bitch.
This is Podcast versus Everyone. I'm Craig Powers. With me is Elizabeth Warren herself, Jeff Newser.
As I said on Twitter, that I consider that to be among the highest compliments that anyone could pay me. I dream of being that intelligent. So
only 2 stars, though.
Only 2 stars. Only 2 stars for being that intelligent. Or trying to be that intelligent, anyway.
All right.
Wow. Here we are.
There will be no Pac-12 sports in 2020, the rest of 2020. That means no fall football, no soccer, no non-conference basketball or early conference games, no volleyball, no nothing, no tennis, whatever the hell else they play in the fall. This sucks. This
totally sucks. Even if we knew it was coming, it sucks.
Yeah, it sucks. You know, just this confirmation. I at the very least we knew we weren't going to be in the stadiums for the games. That was pretty clear with what WSU put out. You know, making you choose your option for season tickets. But now we know there's not going to be games at all. Not even going to be on TV. Empty stadium games. The Pac-12 announced. Well, the Big Ten started by announcing today that they won't have a football season, and then the Pac-12 followed up. They seem to be just waiting for the Big Ten to announce, and then the Pac-12 followed up, and we won't be having Pac-12 sports either. So no Cougar football Saturdays, no Trinity Rodman playing for WSU, no top-ranked WSU recruiting class getting some run in the non-conference schedule for basketball. All of that is out the window, man.
Yeah, it's even when you know it's coming, it's still a bit jarring when it actually happens. I mean, it's just another bummer in a long string of bummers. It's like, we like even just in my profession, going back to school but not going back to school this fall, right? Like. The end of my summer is typically a time when, I'm a little sad that my summer's coming to an end, but I get excited about meeting new students and, establishing those relationships and just kind of, doing the thing that I'm trained to do, right? And being told like, no, actually we expect you to establish relationships with students, but you will now be doing that over Microsoft Teams. Like that's not the job I signed up for, right? And same with the players here. They've been, I assume most of them, training even before they came back to campus, training pretty diligently, preparing for, this fall, and we let them down. Everybody let them down. They, I've seen this all over Twitter, but it's the saying that sports are what you get for a functioning society, and we don't have one, so. We don't get sports, or at least not sports the way we want them. College football, we don't get them at all. College basketball, we're not going to get them at all until at least January. And then maybe we get, I mean, it remains to be seen if Major League Baseball finishes their season and if the NFL finishes their season, and the NBA seems to be able to do it. And I know we've talked about this before. They, their situation's a little different with, the smaller rosters being able to be really encased inside a bubble for months on end. But, nobody else, the NHL apparently is doing that as well and having no problems with it. MLS did it for a while, but they're not doing it anymore because that's not really feasible for, again, rosters of, 25 to 30. So anyway, it's just, it's a lot, and, we don't get what we want. And, like I said, this is the price that we pay for being a failing state in a lot of ways.
Yeah. And with MLS, NFL, or MLS, MLB, things like that, they can kind of create blanket guidelines for their teams because they're a single league with a single governing body. Obviously, college sports is not that. The NCAA has... we already knew the NCAA was mostly toothless. This is all but confirmed that. I think you've seen some people frustrated that the NCAA couldn't help. It's because they literally don't have any power. They don't have any power over what the universities do. It's just not it. They basically have a series of rules that they can break, but they don't really have the people to enforce them, and they certainly wouldn't have the capacity to enforce any sort of uniform COVID-19 guidelines here. And so we don't have that. So you end up with universities trying to play each other, but even the universities within the conferences have varying levels of success in dealing with COVID. I think WSU has been one of the more successful ones. I saw a statement from Jim Harbaugh talking about how Michigan has done pretty well. Like they haven't, they've went 300 and some tests without cases. But that's not necessarily true for all programs. We've seen other programs that are coming up with lots of COVID cases, and so if you're just relying on each program, you just can't really trust each institution to handle it the same way because there's just not that power in place. And but what they can do is just say no, we're not playing. And but obviously the institutions themselves had to vote on that, and they said I saw the Pac-12 one was a unanimous vote, so which I think they probably would have just argued until it was unanimous. But
yeah, I mean the conferences themselves couldn't even get their shit together, really. I mean within the conference, I know that and I'm sure we'll go maybe a little more in depth into this in a little bit, but the role that the player organization efforts played in all this.
Absolutely.
One of the things that was very clear, if you followed some of the deeper reporting on this, Bomani Jones has kind of been at the forefront of reporting on the it's kind of the behind the scenes of the Pac-12's organization movement, which was really the first one, and then a lot of other people have jumped on, and again that I think that plays a role in this decision, but back to what we were talking about just now is. When he was talking to players from all 12 schools, one thing that he said kept coming up over and over and over again as one of the catalysts for the movement, and people pay way too much attention to the 50% revenue thing. I mean, we talked about that last week. Like that's one of 17 demands, and it's pretty far down the list, right? The very top of the demands was COVID testing, and things related to COVID. The thing that, Bomani kept hearing from talking with players across the conference was that standards were not the same across the conference. Now they should have been. Everybody should have been doing the same thing, but it was not. Players are talking to each other, and they're like, yo, my school's doing this, and another player's like, my school's doing this, and another player's like, my school's doing this. I mean, there was stuff like, we're being tested weekly. We're being tested every other week. Oh, well, we're being given a swab and being told to, swab our nose at home and then bring it back. It was all over the place, even within the Pac-12, and that was a big part of the organizing was like, hey, wait a second, and again, back to Cassidy Woods. Cassidy Woods was like, hey man, I just want to opt out of traveling and playing in games. I want to keep training. People are like, well, how can you? And it's like, well, what that says to me is he's like, look, like I believe that WSU is doing a good job. And Dallas Hobbs, who has done multiple interviews now at this point, Outside the Lines, NPR, wonderful well-spoken man, ambassador of the university. Like, what a cool guy.
Talented
he's like
graphic design
and a talented graphic designer, really talented artist. He's just like, look, WSU's doing a good job. So like, they're like, okay, WSU's doing a good job, but like what, again, Cassidy Woods opting out saying, I don't want to travel. I don't want to play in games, says, I don't trust those other dudes. Like,
right.
I don't trust those other schools. And really, when even 12 schools in a conference can't get their shit together, like how are 70 schools or whatever it is across the Power 5 or 60 whatever schools, how are they going to get together when the very system is set up for them to for power to be displaced, right? Like they've set this system up where the conferences are constantly sort of fighting against each other, and only they're almost like Greek city states, of ancient Greece, right? Where like they all have their own interests, but if something comes for them collectively, they're going to band together. And I think that's kind of where we're at right now. Is they're recognizing like, they're going to have to come together for this to work out. I know the ACC, Big 12, SEC, are holding out, but I just think it's really, I mean, they can delay as long as they want, but I don't, unless they're just going to be completely craven, I don't see any way that they can pull this off, without looking very, very bad.
Yeah. It's funny to me about people kind of scoffed at Cassidy Woods for saying like he wanted to not participate but still be part of the team for practicing and stuff. But the funny thing is that a tweet from from Theo Lawson, Larry Scott says technically athletes will be able to continue the 20-hour access period for workouts, but each school will have to make that decision on its own. So even the conference in itself is canceling the games, but they're not canceling the workouts. So the conference itself is saying, hey, you can have the workouts still. So really, it's not that weird to want to feel like what you have at your university is safe and just not trust what others are doing, because that's essentially why this is why everything is being canceled. And it sucks. Like it sucks, man. Like it sucks for all of us. Like I don't. As much as people want to say like there's writers rooting for it so they can be right, like no one wanted to be right like about this, not writers who have their livelihoods based on this, on covering these football games and basketball games and whatever else. Certainly us who have this weekly podcast. Have you seen? We haven't had it exactly weekly lately because there isn't a whole lot to talk about. It's just it sucks for us, and then of course we are also fans. It sucks to have that huge part of my life, which is my season tickets to WSU, not be a part of this fall. And it's been a bummer, something I've been kind of coming to grips with lately because I knew it was going to happen, but it still sucks nonetheless. And then, of course, for the players, like we saw, essentially the We Want to Play and the We Are United movements combine because they essentially had the same demands. They all wanted to play football. They just wanted the schools to make it safe for them to all play. So the players all wanted to play. Like there was no player that wanted to sit out the season. They just wanted to ensure if they were going to play for it to be safe and guaranteed that the school they were playing was having the same sort of guidelines. And so it's just it sucks for the players, especially you got to think for the seniors, even if there's a spring season, which we can talk about that. If you're a senior headed towards maybe the NFL, like are you really going to be wanting to play the games instead of just like more focused on training for your NFL tryouts, your combine and your pro days and whatever else, and training for the draft, and like so Do you really want to be in school while you're doing all that? We see a lot of players just aren't even in school. Obviously they're done with, they try to graduate early so they can stop with that. So yeah, this sucks like all around for everyone. Like it sucks for everyone. As much as like I can say, yeah, it's probably a good decision. It doesn't mean that I can't be sad about the decision.
Yeah. Here's what the conference said specifically about what you referenced, which is what is safe and what is not, right? So the Pac-12 released this 12-page document that says health and well-being considerations for Pac-12 institutions, guidance for local planning for return to sporting activity, updated August 10th, 2020. So this is yesterday. We're recording this on Tuesday the 11th. So this would have been on Monday. So as I read through this, some of this was pretty clearly in there before, and some of it is new. The first page appears to be new. It's got a current assessment, and then as it kind of goes through. All right, so this is where we think we are right now. So basically, what it said was this. Okay, so current assessment, 3 things. Number 1. Community prevalence remains very high in much of the Pac-12 footprint, and traveling to many places is likely unsafe, particularly on commercial aircraft. Okay, so that's number 1. Number 2, we are concerned about health outcomes related to the virus. Among these, there is new and evolving information regarding potential serious cardiac side effects in elite athletes. We do not have enough information to understand the short and long-term outcomes regarding these health issues. And then 3, testing capacity needs to increase to allow for more frequent testing, perform closer to game time, and with more rapid turnaround time to prevent spread of infection and enhance the safety of all student athletes, coaches, staff involved, particularly in situations where physical distancing mask wearing cannot be maintained. This will require access to significant capacity of point-of-care testing and rapid turnaround time, which is currently very limited. Okay, so when those are the 3 things they listed, that obviously tells you those are really the 3 things that are driving the decision, right? Like how much is there, how much virus is there in the community? What are the long-term health outcomes if somebody does catch this? And then how could we even do this? We would need huge testing, and we don't have that right now. So that's why it says at this time, we do not recommend initiating contact or competition activities. Now, to your point, it says we do believe that non-contact exercise with physical distancing is reasonable to continue and safer than contact activities competitions. Our statistics to date indicate the Pac-12 institutions have been relatively successful in returning student athletes to exercise without an undue risk in viral transmission, as almost all new cases have been the result of activities outside of the athletic departments. So there you go. So basically, like, again, Cassidy Woods, not unreasonable, thinking, I could keep doing this, just not that. Okay, so there's that. And then it just, like, the current assessment shows just kind of how far away we are, man. Like I think people are thinking that this is, like, on some kind of razor's edge. And I think it's pretty clear from this document, because they're like, well, why did the Big Ten and Pac-12 cancel so early, right? Like, they haven't even started, like, real practices yet. Like, that's not for wasn't supposed to be for another week or 2, right? So it's like, why are they doing this so early? I think it's because they're just looking at this going, we're not even close to being able to do what we need to do in order for this to move forward.
Right, and the universities, the Pac-12, they're afraid of being liable if someone gets sick, if someone dies, if people are contracting the disease, having long-term effects, from coronavirus. We've seen long-term like lung effects and other vital organ effects from it. So they don't want that liability. And on that topic, how much do you think the role of the players' movement itself played in this decision coming from the conferences?
See, I think it's huge and I don't think it can be separated at all from this. Now, there are some who would say, like, as we learned with the Cassidy Woods thing, which was a great example of this, like, everything always tends to boil down to binary arguments, right? Like, I mean, I even got told, like, I wanted to run Nick Rolovich out on the first train out of town because of, the way I interpreted his comments on that phone call. And I'm like, listen, just because I think he did a shitty thing doesn't mean I think he's necessarily a shitty person or should be fired or like there's room for nuance and middle ground here, right? And so I think this is another thing where it's nuance. I don't think you can say it's only the like there are some people really kind of saying like, okay, this is they're just postponing this because they would rather postpone a season than deal with the organizing efforts of the players. And I'm like, I don't think it's that cut and dried or that simple, because I think all of these issues are intertwined. Like, so yeah, I do think the organizing played a role in it, because the players are like, they're talking to each other. And this is, again, something Brian Floyd talked about on last week's show, this idea that college sports were set up for a century to basically keep players stupid, or ignorance, maybe a better word, keep them ignorant of what was going on with other players, of what was going on with other teams, like even necessarily what's going on with other students. Like they build these massive facilities. Why? To keep the players as close as possible, to have as much control as possible. So, now that the players are talking to each other and sharing, look, I mean, college football has had a culture forever of just like, yo, rub some dirt on it and get out there. I'm taking your scholarship away. And, concussions started to eat away at that a little bit, right? This idea like, okay, players maybe need to look out for themselves a little more with concussions and, maybe have a little more autonomy over when they play, when they don't play, when they're symptom free, et cetera. But this is, now we've got a legitimate organizing effort saying like, hey, like we don't feel like one of their stated goals is we don't feel safe, and you need to assure us that we are safe. And if they're going to say that collectively, then the university is going to go, okay, so I guess, and again, not a lot of receptiveness to engaging with the players on this necessarily. But if you're a college president and you're looking at this and you're going, okay, they have demanded that we guarantee their safety. So now we're kind of stuck, right? Like we can't say that they're safe. We can't say that there's no long-term implications from this. And so if something does go sideways down the road, not only, could we be liable just from that fact, but we could also, they could also say, hey, we demanded this and we were rebuffed and not engaged. And, or if they do engage and say, okay, you're safe and we're good, then they can come back on that. So I think there's all these different ways that it can go that are really, I think, catalyzed by the player movement. Because like, to bring it back to concussions for a second, it's obviously not a perfect analogy, but look, I mean, players play with, the risks of a concussion, both short and long term. And that does not stop the NCAA from putting football players out there. Right. So, right. Long-term unknowns are not necessarily a deterrent for the NCAA, and yet, or for the, I shouldn't say the NCAA, I should say the member institutions of the NCAA, because as you pointed out, the NCAA is just the schools, and they have as much power as the schools let them have. And in this case, not very much. I think these schools being unwilling to take that step during this, I think, says something about how maybe this is different. Again, pandemics, obviously different than a concussion. You can't catch a concussion, but I think the organizing is like that. I think that's a thing that gives them more pause than maybe they would have a month ago.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that, let's be honest, like, not saying it's 100% a decision, but postponing the season allows the NCAA, not the NCAA, the NCAA member institutions. I made the same mistake you just did. But
I know, right? We conflate these things all the time.
Yeah, but it allows the universities to kick the can down the road and figure their shit out, and maybe take away some of the momentum the players had. It probably made the decision easier for them, knowing this is a very difficult decision for them. There's a lot of money on the line. I think that's why they're holding out hope for a spring season, because there's a lot of money on the line here, a lot of TV revenue, and potentially maybe they're hoping if they move it to spring, you can have some ticket revenue as well. I immediately think that January and February are the supposed to be the flu season for this, so I don't. We'll see how that goes. But yeah, so I think it's it's funny. If you read about Dallas Hobbs and the Athletic and from Spokesman and everything he's been on, he basically had this 20 minutes to put together this graphic because they knew that these decisions were coming, and so the players wanted to be out in front to be like, hey, we actually want to play. This is what we're asking of the universities. And now the universities come out and they're like, well, we're not playing. And so I think those two, like the players, I think were smart in putting that out there and being like, look, we're not the ones asking them to shut this down. This is them shutting it down. Right.
We're just asking them to do it in a way that's safe and to guarantee our safety with appropriate protocols, mandated protocols. And the university's like, nah.
Or listen, no, like people aren't going to be like, people are going to be like, why did you cancel sports? I mean, that's,
yes.
Yeah. Yes. But at the same time, it's like, for the most part, especially in where the Pac-12 plays and where the Big Ten plays, like I think the majority will be along the lines of, hey, yeah, let's not play sports. So you get that, you get that protection. At the same time, it allows you to kind of push the talk of player unionization down the road a little bit.
Now, I'm of the opinion that this is actually going to be a catalyzing event for the players and their organizing and unionizing, or whatever you want to call it. Because number one, it not only buys more time for the university to get their shit together, it also buys more time for the players to get their shit together. And then if we look at it this way and say, well, you're going to have a lot of really pissed off players, like a lot of pissed off players who are going to be like, man, I have busted my butt. I have worked super hard. I have done this. I've adhered to the protocols. I'm getting ready. And now this is being pulled out from under me. I wonder if that goes back the other direction, like saying, especially if there's no, because I think this was the big dividing line, right? I mean, we went over this last week on last week's show about, okay, so are you boycotting or not boycotting, right? Are you out because of COVID? Or are you out because you're boycotting? And what's the repercussions of boycotting, et cetera? Well, okay, so now there's nothing to boycott, right? Which, of course, removes some leverage, but also removes some of the scariness for players like, say, I'll just throw a name out there, Lamont McDougal, right? Who was like, yeah, I fully support this movement, but it was pretty much made clear to me that I might be in big trouble with my scholarship if I choose to align myself with this group, so I'm not going to do that, right? Now, does the equation now change now that boycotting is off the table? Do more players sign up and say, yeah, I want to be a part of this, right, from a negotiating standpoint? I mean, what do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, that makes sense. Like if the player doesn't have to give up something, obviously it's a lot easier for people to follow a movement if they themselves don't have to sacrifice as much.
Yep.
And if a player doesn't have to sacrifice a year of eligibility or doing the thing that they love doing the most in the world, which is, for a lot of these players, that is the case. Like, the football is their identity. So I think, that there's a possibility there that they could get more backing. But at the same time, what happens if they do build that movement over the next 4 months and then January comes along? I guess it depends on what the outlook looks across the country. How we've been able to deal with COVID-19 will have a lot to say about whether the players will have to look at potentially, another sort of boycott, or if the universities will actually have kind of met those demands because honestly, that shouldn't be a demand that players may have to make. That
shouldn't be.
You think that, especially a lot of these coaches, basically tell when they're recruiting, they tell the parents that they're basically taking care of your kid for you. Like they're part of our family now.
Yes.
And it's like, well, like then if that's true, then you should be doing all you can to protect them from this, as any parent would do. So I think it'll be curious. I mean, a lot of it. We'll see how things go with COVID, obviously, for the next, and we'll see if it, if it actually, kind of rears its head again, and maybe a new strain or something in January.
Yeah. Should we take a break and then talk spring football?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay. We're back.
So, are you drinking a beer, Jeff?
I am not. I am currently drinking water. I will be drinking beer later tonight, so I figured I would hold off.
So I cracked one.
But I know you are.
Yeah, I cracked a beer from Anchorage called Darkest Hour, which, of course, the darkest hour of having all of our sports canceled. Darkest hour for our podcast, because we literally will have nothing to talk about. Although we have something, an idea of something, which we'll see how that goes. But yeah, so Darkest Hour Anchorage. It is a barrel-aged stout, aged 15 months in whiskey barrels, conditioned on Cascara and coffee from Cascara, which is it's kind of this bark thing, and then coffee from Black Cup, which is probably some Alaskan Anchorage coffee place. So Anchorage Brewing, pretty good. Pretty nice. The coffee has faded from when I first had it, but it's still pretty nice. Drinking pretty well. Definitely barrel forward. Pretty damn good stout. But yeah, Darkest Hour, man. I was texting with some friends, and they were talking about there's a beer called Black Tuesday by the brewery. And honestly, if I would have thought, I might have popped that one open, but that is a 19 to 20% beer, and it comes in a 750 milliliter bottle. So
that is not a drink by yourself beer. 26
ounces, yeah, not a drink by yourself beer. So I thought maybe that would have fit really well Black Tuesday today on Black Tuesday when we're recording this, but maybe not so much. So yeah, Anchorage Darkest Hour of a college football fan's, year, I guess, is seeing all this happen.
I mean, this is even a darker hour than learning that Ernie Kent's contract had been rolled over.
I mean, that was just a yearly Darkest Hour. But again, at least that wasn't our money. It was our basketball team.
Well, in our memories and our whatever. Like, you had a great thread. Was it last night or the night before?
Yeah.
I can't remember. But anyway, just posting pictures of all your, fun memories going back to Pullman. And, those are things that sucks. It's like I don't get back there very often, but when I do, it's amazing and I miss it and it's special. And,
but you're still 1 to 3 times a year. I mean,
yeah.
And
it was pretty much once or twice a year. Yeah.
And then the spring game we would go back for, which is some of my pictures are from, which we already missed that. And that's always fun because you don't have the kind of the stress of an actual football game. But I'll miss a lot of things, because I'll just kind of summarize my thread here. I love taking my dad to games. I love taking my daughter to games. I'm trying to build this Coug fandom in her, and we're trying to build the myth of Pullman and the mythos of Pullman in her, and see all my friends. There's a lot of people we talk about our podcast partner Michael Preston and his wife Sammy, who just had a kid, and they were excited to bring the kid to Pullman, and I always get to see them. I get to see our Sherwood, a lot of our Coug Center buddies, BA and his fiance Katie, who their relationship effectively started at a Cougar football weekend. So it's like you just miss on a lot of the stuff. My sister was going to turn 30 on for the I can't remember what it would have been, the Idaho weekend. So just we could have had a grand old time because we know we're not going to lose that football game, and we're just going to just have a great weekend. Just all sorts of fun stuff missing out on, man. And it just been, since I've been a season ticket holder since I moved back, in the end of 2014. So 2015 was the first year as a season ticket holder. So it's been, 15, 16, 17, 18, and 19, five seasons, five fun seasons, a lot of fun, bowl games and just a lot of wins at Martin Stadium and just a lot of great tailgates. Tailgating is so much fun. Even if the team loses, like you have a blast going to Pullman and you have a blast just kicking it with everyone. And, yeah, dude, it sucks. Like, that's a huge part of my life. Roughly a third of the year where every weekend I'm going, to Pullman, driving, round trip, roughly 10 hours, and not even blinking and batting an eye about, it's just part of my life at this point. And just to think that it's not going to be there this fall. Like at the same time, you joke like, well, I'm going to have Saturdays again. But I don't want to have Saturdays. I want to be busy. I want to be going to Pullman. I want to be doing that 5-hour drive. I want to be eating Cougar Country, and I want to be, getting, maybe 1 week getting a ton of beers at the Coug, another hanging out at the tailgate for an extended period of time, and bringing my my fancy beers and sharing them with everyone. Like it's, there's just so much about it that is, it's a large financial commitment, but I do it because it's something that I just love so much. And I'm really bummed that I won't have that. And that's part of why it's like the darkest hour is like this confirmation that it's just not going to happen this year. Like your year of this year of things being weird and things being canceled. In the, when we were thinking and maybe in March, like maybe there'll be a season, maybe we'll figure it out by then. And now it's just, we know it's not going to, and it's going to be different. But I guess the one hope we have, man, is that we'll have some football in the spring.
Yeah, I mean, what you said is spot on. That the football's great. I mean, no doubt about that. But it's all of the, the football adjacent stuff, right? I mean, it's the, it's going back to Pullman and all of the activities that you mentioned, and all of the people that are involved there, right? I mean, that was the common thread of all of your tweets was, all these people that I get to hang out with and see and do fun stuff with and make memories with. And I think that's really the thing that the virus has sort of robbed us of, is that, our ability to get together with people and make memories has been really short circuited, depending on how much you pay attention to that, like not getting together with groups of people. But, it's, that's the part that we're really going to miss out on. I mean, not having games, I just kind of look back over the last, 6 months or whatever it is at this point, or 5 months. And it's like, I can't sit here and say that I've missed games, right? But I've missed talking to my friends about games, right? Like like when the Sounders came back, it was like, yeah, like you and I got to talk about it. And we even had, I had you and Dave Clark over to watch the game against the Whitecaps. We watched it outside, 6 feet apart, but it was like, like we were able to get together and share something in common. And that's the part we're going to miss. So, spring, I don't know. Like, I guess, like, I don't know. I don't put maybe as much, I don't think that the idea of having a spring season and a fall season right on the back of it is something that is that major of a concern. I know some people have kind of floated the health implications of that. I mean, I don't know. If you play 2 normal seasons, you're looking at 24 games. And again, not to say that this is healthy or good, but there are NFL players who play 24 games in a season. So, by the way, that's assuming the spring season is a full season, which I think is probably a bad assumption.
Yeah, probably not. Yeah.
We're probably looking at a conference only season, if anything. So, okay. So probably 11 games, and then, maybe by next fall they can actually have a full season of 12 games. But at any rate, having 20 to 26 games is not, NFL players do that between preseason, regular season games and the playoffs. So I don't know that I put that much stock in that being a limiting factor. I just think that, I don't know that conditions are going to be able to change significantly enough. Like I said, I read that document from the Pac-12, and that just screams to me, we're not even close. We're not even close to being able to do this under the NCAA's model of, student athlete, right? Model where, the players are not employees. And so rather than, submit to the idea that they are employees, they'd rather, push it off till spring and hope things get better. It sounds like there is a long, long way to go for it to get better. And that's not even accounting for, what might end up happening in the meantime, which is, another outbreak as the weather gets cold and people end up inside.
Yeah. I think people forget that January and February are super cold. If you don't like late November games in Pullman, I know all of us that went to WSU remember those Januaries and Februaries and Marches where
I was gonna say March ain't no warm month, man.
Yeah, winter just never seems to end.
There's
some years
maybe end of March.
Yeah,
you start getting some decent weather.
Snow in April is not out of the question.
Nope.
In Pullman. So, you could look at a spring, you can't see me doing the quote fingers, season that's in Pullman. It's just buried in snow, which in that case, even if you're allowing fans in the stadium, I don't see how many fans are going to those. We've seen how many fans go to that pre-Apple Cup game in November that we always seem to have, that weekend before. So it's and just the pass in January and February. But but otherwise, I'm not 100% convinced that we'll be fine. I feel like there'll be another wave coming along in this virus, it's just but if it's possible, I hope it can happen. But I do agree with you on the point that it's not necessarily like out of the question that the players could handle it physically. I'm sure that they could. It's
I think the assumption is that the 20 to 22-year-old body can probably handle the bounce back better than, say, the 28 to 32-ish body in the NFL, right?
Right. No, yeah, exactly. Now the bounce back for our, us, like our livers as fans, is another question. Can we handle 24 college football games in a year?
In a calendar month or in a calendar year.
Yeah, that's that's a whole another question. But yeah, all jokes aside, I don't know. Like I think there's obviously there's a lot of ways they could do it. I would actually kind of have confidence they come up with some way to do some football in the spring, and so we'll probably see something. The scholarships will be interesting, and the eligibility of players. Which players choose to actually play, if the seniors and stuff. So.
Yep. One interesting part of the Pac-12's document is that they said they're recommending that anybody who opts out because of COVID retains their year of eligibility. And then, that's a thing that's up to the NCAA, which, as we already said, is the member schools. So you would think if there's momentum from the conference level for that's something that probably has a pretty decent chance of being enacted. But I don't, I don't know how the accounting ends up working out on that later, where it's like, okay, so if you've got all these guys, you're going to have a 25-person recruiting class coming in. So how's that going to work out as far as, the number of scholarships you have to give if, you have however many number of players coming back and retaining a year of eligibility? Or what if everything's canceled altogether, right? Or do you give all of the, all whatever 20 of the seniors, another year of eligibility? Like, how does it? So yeah, it's going to be a fine mess. I do stand behind my initial assessment from months ago that they will try and play some kind of season at some point. But my confidence on that has gotten just kind of lower and lower as they really just continue to kick the can down the road. At some point, you're not going to be able to kick it any farther down the road, and there's going to have to be a decision. And I think that this was, I'm not going to say this was an easy decision, but it's an easier decision if you're like, well, maybe we could make spring work. I mean, that's like a backstop that's out there that maybe, even if it's unlikely, even if it's, fraught with complications and difficulties on its own, it's still a possibility. And so kicking it down the road for a possibility is one thing. Canceling outright and saying, okay, this year is done, I think is something entirely different. So I don't know. It's going to take a level of organizing and coordination with all 5 conferences to make this happen. And, I don't know, maybe go ahead.
On that part, the SEC is still,
they're still holding out.
They're still holding out. They basically, the statement they said today is, I look forward to learning more about the factors that, this is from SEC Commissioner Greg Sankey. I look forward to learning more about the factors that led the Big Ten and Pac-12 leadership to take these actions today. I remain comfortable with the thorough and deliberate approach that the SEC and our 14 members are taking to support a healthy environment for our student athletes. We will continue to further refine our policies and protocols for a safe return to sports as we monitor developments around COVID-19 and the continued effort to support, educate, and care for our student athletes every day. Now, you can say that, but like, do you see a scenario where the SEC is having football games in the fall and Big Ten and Pac-12 and ACC are not?
Well, and even then, I'll go even one step further. There's like crazy scenarios that say, like, for example, Michigan seems pretty pissed off that there's not going to be football. Do you see conference members trying to, do you see, like, for example, the SEC saying, hey, Michigan, come on over, not on a permanent basis, but hey, you can play some football with us this year. I don't know. Like, it would not shock me if the SEC decided to press ahead. And I think that, I mean, let's just be honest, the constituency is different. Right. I mean, look, you and I are sitting here in our liberal coastal elite state of Washington, Western Washington, saying, well, this makes sense to us. And, we kind of saw the writing on the wall. And I mean, like, we are not outraged, right? I mean, we're bummed, but we're not outraged by this. I mean, all you have to do is kind of spend a pretty small amount of time on Twitter, and it's not hard to find a pretty different constituency that comes from, in general, and I'm not going to paint with the biggest brush, but it's like, in general from certain regions of the country, right? And so these are the regions that are still holding out. It's the Big 12, it's the SEC, it's the ACC, right? It's that sort of, the Bible Belt type area of the country, for lack of a better term. So I don't know, man. I would not be shocked if they pressed ahead. I think the Big Ten and the Pac-12, just from an academic standpoint, have always sort of fancied themselves above the academic standing of the other 3 conferences anyway. Mm-hmm. And I don't think I don't know. Presidents are the ones making this decision, and presidents think about those kinds of things, like the prestige of their universities being harmed. Like, they think of that kind of stuff, right? They think about, not that all presidents don't think about this, but the financial well-being of the university, but the prestige is a big one, man. If you're Stanford or you're Michigan or you're Ohio State or you're USC or you're right, like prestige is a big thing. And if you push ahead with this and it's a train wreck, I mean, it's the kind of thing that, could become, to some degree, brand killers in places like the West Coast and, where the Midwest, where the Big Ten is with these big, research institutions. Is it a brand killer in the SEC if there's some sickness? Now, if someone dies, all bets are off. That's a different deal, right? But if someone gets sick and shipped off and they have heart problems, well, I mean, players are looked at as commodities in a lot of places. And so, I don't know. I think eventually they'll fall in line, but I would not be shocked if they try to take it right up until the very last possible moment before calling it off. And I think there's maybe a 10% chance that they go ahead and push through.
Yeah, I think that's right. I think it's a much lower chance that any team is going to bail on their conference. If that does happen, that might be a catalyst for something much larger.
Yep.
A super conference or something like that. Because if you can show that the affiliation of the conference is that weak, like where you can just be like, well, you said we couldn't play, but we're going to play anyway. We're going to play these other teams from this other conference.
Right.
Like if Michigan tells the big, Michigan, Nebraska, whatever, says, oh, we're going to go play in a different conference. Like, or, it seems weird, like to think like the Nebraska going back to the Big 12, but there's a regional stuff there, but still, like that would be a huge kind of slap in the face of the sort of institution of a conference. Like if you can just ignore whatever they say and go do whatever you want,
right?
Then like what is the point of conferences outside of like negotiating TV contracts? Like so it's which like a team like Michigan, a school like Michigan probably doesn't necessarily need a larger conference to make TV money. They're probably among some few that have some like a little bit of a national following. Obviously not to the level of like Notre Dame or BYU, but maybe they feel like they're one of the big fish in the pond, and they can just take over if they need to.
Right.
But I still think that the ADs, the presidents, would be hesitant to do that, to kind of like disrupt that power structure just yet.
Yeah, I think you're right. I'm not saying it's likely, but yeah, there's some really, really pissed off people.
Yeah.
Right now.
Well, that's what. Yeah, like I talked about the statement that Jim Harbaugh made.
Yeah.
Talking like if you read that, like you could read him as like basically pleading for people, like don't cancel the football. Like our players aren't sick. If everyone does what we do, people won't get sick. And he's probably right. Like he's probably right. If everyone does what he does, people probably won't get sick. Yeah, that's true. Like if everyone did what WSU does, but that's the problem is like you can't guarantee that, and you can't leave these 18 to 22-year-olds liable, or you can't be liable for if one of them gets sick. So
yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. It's going to be interesting to watch. I'm not surprised that the SEC is holding out. I'm not surprised that the Big 12 is holding out. Like this is just those are, football is a much deeper kind of part of the culture. College football is in Alabama and Texas and Louisiana and Georgia. Like college football is a much deeper part of the culture, because we've even seen, obviously they were playing high school football and things like that when no one else was. So it's they play high school football when there's a hurricane has wrecked their town, and like they still figure out a way to like band 12 kids together
right.
to play high school football, and so amateur football,
quotation marks
is huge for them, and so it's a much bigger deal. It's obviously a big deal to me and you, and it's a big deal to a lot of our listeners. So like, but we don't have like we are a minority, and we are a niche culture in the Northwest, in the West Coast. The people with fandom like us are not a niche culture in Texas and in Alabama and Georgia. So like there's a lot more pushback there, because like this is you're taking away a huge thing because if you just think about the sizes of the stadiums compared to the sizes of the cities there. Like if you're looking at like Bryant-Denny Stadium is like 90,000 people, and Tuscaloosa is not that big. I think it's like 100,000 people or something. Like you're looking at Arkansas's stadium in Fayetteville, which is probably roughly twice the size of Pullman, I want to say, but they have like an 80,000 seat stadium. Like Knoxville, Tennessee is maybe the size of Tacoma or Spokane, and they have 100,000 seat stadium there. Like it's like college football is a much bigger deal to more people, and so it's just that's why you see the push, and that's why I think there's still, like you said, a 10%, which is not that low of a chance, like 10% chance that they're actually going to play football in the fall and not not in the spring.
Yeah, I think the other piece of this, Stephen Godfrey wrote about this for What's Left of Banner Society today, but he kind of talked about how the coaches don't know what they're going to do with themselves. Like, I think that's a not to be overlooked piece of this, right? I mean, like, these guys, they coach to coach, right? Like that's kind of their deal. And, so now no season, now what do you do? Right. And they've been, biding their time on this since March, right? Like a lot of them didn't get spring practices, and now they're not going to get a season. And like, it's going to be the longest amount of time most of these people have ever spent in their entire life without football related activity, like real deal football related activities. And probably same thing is true for the players too. So anyway, I don't know, man, there's like so much of this stuff rolled up in it. I mean, I'm sure and I probably shouldn't laugh at this, but there I'm sure is a non-zero number of coaches who are like, what am I without football? And it's
players too.
Players too. So a lot of introspection going to be going on. And the funny thing is like I kind of don't hate the person I am without football.
Oh yeah.
I mean, without sports, I mean, by like June, I was pretty much jonesing for some sports. So the Bundesliga came around at a good time, but there was also like I'm way less wound up. I'm way less now, you don't get the good stuff, which is, the celebrations and the camaraderie. But at the same time, it was sort of like, I don't know, man, maybe I'm better off without it. I'm not. That was a troubling realization, my friend.
Well, I always have that realization whenever, I think of watching games. Like if we'll watch a game at my house with just like a couple people and maybe B and Amanda and I'm just like losing my mind, and B is like very concerned about what's going on. Even just with the soccer, I was watching a Defiance match the other day, and I was doing that. And it's funny seeing me kind of transfer some of that emotion to other outlets, which is soccer teams mostly, because like soccer is mostly what we have at this point,
right?
We have the Mariners, who are just one game out of a playoff spot, as unbelievable as that is, because of the expanded playoff, are just one game out of a playoff spot right now. But so you just kind of invest, whatever. I do know more about this Mariners team than I've probably known about a Mariners team in a couple years, like, because I'm just like, well, if the Mariners are playing, like, who are all these kids that are playing for this team?
Right.
Like, I also have been playing a lot more video games, quite a lot more video games. I've been spending a lot more time with my PS4, because I just don't, I'm just not spending time thinking about Cougar football, because I'm just like, I don't want to think about it. It makes me sad to think about.
Well, and that's why we haven't written anything. I mean, other sites,
because we would normally be previewing stuff at this point,
and other sites kind of plowed, full steam ahead, and I'm just like, I just don't. I'm just not feeling like I'm not feeling writing a 2,000 word quarterback breakdown when it's probably going to get canceled.
We didn't have spring football to see the quarterbacks.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like, it's probably going to get canceled, and who knows? And I mean, maybe that's, I don't know. I mean, look, I've always found the most joy in writing about stuff that has happened. So analyzing things that have happened, analyzing teams and games and trends. And, my favorite thing is writing, my Monday after columns, after football games, like that's the kind of stuff I really enjoy. And, not the other necessarily just kind of grind it out stuff that we do sometimes, just kind of pass the time until the season rolls back around. So yeah, I mean, that's why, a lot of us like haven't been doing much. I mean, we have our daily, news posts and, we keep podcasting mostly, but even then, I mean, we we were pretty committed to every week, no matter what. And then it's just kind of been like, I mean, unless we just make up some sort of like bullshit thing to talk about, like what it.
Yeah, but it's at the same time, it's just not as fun talking about old games. Like, like we
Sure.
talk about when there's no promise of a new season. Like, it's just, for some reason, it's just been like this block for me. Like, if I, like, because normally I'd be like, let's talk about, the greatest whatevers in Cougar history. But it's like, then I'm going to like be like, mostly it's going to be like, remember sports?
Yeah.
Remember
I mean,
when we had
it's
sports?
the uncertainty that gets you, right?
Yeah.
Maybe not. Maybe there's a season.
Like, yeah, don't like, I watch media now. Like, I watch TV shows or any movies or anything. And there's this thing that's always in the back of your mind when like people are gathering closely and doing things like in close proximity. Like, I just have this like knee-jerk reaction now where it's like, this is wrong. What are you doing? Why are you so close? Like, what are you doing? Like,
absolutely.
Yeah, it's just talking about old sports is not the same. Maybe we'll do some like, watching, watch-alongs that like we've done before. The everyone in 60. We'll probably just have to. But
yeah, we're gonna have to come up with some better ideas probably.
I'm definitely gonna dive back into my NCAA 14 because that's just I'm gonna need to get that college football fixed.
I wish my 360 still worked. It doesn't.
Oh, bummer.
Sad day.
My PS3 still works. So.
Yeah, the little like drawer that comes out died and like doesn't play games the way it's supposed to, and whatever.
It's nice now you can just download games and play them. Like it's a good piece of progression.
Yeah.
I guess. I don't know. I don't know how to talk. What are words? I don't.
It's the darkest hour is what that is.
Yeah, it's the darkest hour. Yeah, literally the darkest hour beer is having its effect on me at this point.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, man, this sucks.
It sucks. We mark the years of our lives with these seasons.
Absolutely.
They go around, and that sounds like super dramatic and maybe a little like melodramatic, but it's true. Like it's, remember that year? Oh yeah, that was the year that, blank, blank, blank. Like that's not unusual, right? Like, I mean, my son, my youngest son was born in 2012, like not that long after Mike Leach was hired. Like these are things that like are connected in my brain, when it comes to sports. And, we think about, 2018, that was, the magic year, in 1997. And I mean, it's just, so to lose that, it really is a loss. It really sucks. And, so we're just going to have to double down on figuring out a way to continue this stuff and, figure out a way to find interesting things to talk about or not. I don't know. We could just talk about
Fine.
Maybe we could talk about
Fine.
uninteresting things.
Yeah, let's talk about uninteresting things.
Yeah. I don't know what those would
talk
be.
about our coexist stickers on the back of our Subarus.
Our Subaru, I want it noted that our Subaru Outback does not have a coexist sticker on it. Just want you to know that.
We were going to buy a Subaru, probably Forester, but then the newest model, which was last year, 2019, of the RAV4 hybrid had such better gas mileage and is all-wheel drive. So we actually have a Toyota RAV4 hybrid.
Yeah.
So suck it, reviewer. No coexist stickers.
No Subaru for Craig. Although I have one. They kind of nailed us on that one.
I know. Outback too. So,
it is an Outback. And it's got a sticker on the back that says adventure is a family value. So we do have that. It's okay. My other car's a Tahoe. So
did go.
Maybe that makes me manly.
He mentioned a co-op, and we did go to the local co-op held a like they set up a drive-in theater in their parking lot, and so we went to the co-op on last Friday and watched a movie in the parking lot. So yeah, co-ops, we're hitting all things here. He did say we know a lot about craft beer. I appreciate that. It's funny, I sent that review. Actually, let me just read the review. So, like, we've been referencing it. I have said it. We will make fun of you if you post a bad review, and so I'll live up to that. So it was from Burt McCoy 84 on iTunes. I don't know if people leave reviews anywhere else. I've never looked. If Elizabeth Warren were a Coug fan, 2 stars. If you ever saw a Subaru with a Coexist bumper sticker at your local co-op and wished the married couple that owned it had a podcast that knew a lot about craft beer and a little about Coug sports, this is the podcast for you. And only 2 stars. It's funny. I sent it to Amanda, and she's like, only 2 stars? That sounds like a great podcast.
Yeah, that sounds nice.
Yeah.
I guess he doesn't care for Elizabeth Warren or Subarus or... Yeah, I mean, we kind of are like an old married couple, though.
Yeah,
there's definite that.
We've had that. I've had that pointed out to us before. It's the funny thing is, like, I always laugh when people are like, oh, "You guys talk about beer too much," which we've gotten multiple times. It's like we talk about beer for like 10 minutes, at the
like
most,
maybe 10 minutes
of a 90 to 2 hour podcast, 90 minute to 2 hour podcast. So sorry.
And pretty much the rest of it is Cougar sports. Like, we don't even talk about any of the other off the wall shit that we used to talk about when we first started the show.
Well, and so I get a lot of people that tell me this fast forward through the beer stuff. It's not that hard. There's a button on the podcast app for that. Like, it's very easy. That's usually used for ads, and you can use it for anything you want.
Yeah.
You can skip past learning about whatever beer I'm drinking. It's fine. Like,
yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. I thought that was a pretty funny review. You can counteract that 2-star review by leaving us a 5-star review, and then bring our score back up.
Yeah.
Sorry that there's 3 different feeds that show up on iTunes. There's nothing we can do about that.
Yeah, that was not our choice.
But yeah, so I don't know. I guess I'm kind of wrapping it up here. I don't think we have much else to talk about.
Nah, that's it. Let's just, let's hope we figure this thing out at some point in the next, 3 months, so that we can have our sports back and I can go back to work with students, and we can hug our friend. Well, I don't know if that's ever going to happen again. Hugging our friends.
No more hugs.
No more hugs. I don't know.
Hugs are
possible.
canceled.
It's possible, man. It's possible. So, but yeah, it sure would be nice to get back to do what's necessary to get back to some normalcy, or at the very least, do something to get it going in the right direction here pretty quick. But yeah, not a lot of confidence there.
Yeah, definitely not. I'm not at a high state of belief in the power of our nation state right now. Yeah, I guess like I said, leave us a review. iTunes, 5 stars, please. Leave us a funny comment. Maybe we'll read about it. If you're gonna leave something like that, still leave us 5 stars, please. You can follow me if you want to see I got it pinned to my profile if you want to see the things I'll miss most about Cougar football. I'm at the Craig Powers on Twitter. Jeff is at Pod versus Everyone. If you want him, his football takes, his hot takes on politics, all the good stuff.
There's a few of those.
Few of those. If you ever followed the old News Coug, it's the same.
I don't know, man. I tend to think I'm a little more. I'm even more fired up. I'm more I am unhinged now.
Absolutely.
Maybe that's how I put it. Maybe that's how other people would put it.
Anything else to plug? I don't know.
Nope. I think that's it.
Yeah. Subscribe.
Wear a mask.
Do that. Wear a mask.
Go Cougs.
Go Cougs.